what is buzzword bingo? Like where you just try and say as many buzzwords as you can in an interview, or?
No, it's where you give a word that's sort of a non sequitur, like rubber ducky or spearmint or whatever. And regardless of what topic you're talking about, you have to fit that in somewhere logically into the conversation.
Do you know why you're my hero?
Tell me.
Because you just used the word non sequitur in a regular conversation.
That's a fact.
This guy's got like the best vocabulary in the world.
I told you that I was a spelling bee kid, right?
No, you did you go all the way? Were you?
No.
Is there an Olympics for spelling bee for this?
No, but actually, there are talks for next year to have a hacker spelling bee at DEF CON.
I love it.
Oh my God.
Like spell white hat. Like, I mean, it's not like we have huge words though in our industry, like complicated words.
I mean, really? Polymorphic encryption.
Okay, polymorphic. Okay.
You're like, okay.
Deborah Clark.
Yes.
Introduce yourself. Besides marketing goddess.
Oh, okay. By the way, just as a quick, before you start recording.
We are recording, by the way. We are live.
We are live right now.
We are streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
Oh my God. I was going to say, actually, I have a hard stop in 25 minutes for another meeting because it's been insane.
All right.
I am Deborah Clark McGinn, if I add my married name, which my husband would probably appreciate. But I run global marketing. I run global marketing for Arxan.
Mr. Lint. Lintile.
Aaron Lint, go by handle Lintile.
Wait, where'd that come from? What is a Lintile?
I
think of that stuff at the bottom of a dryer that you pull out of the lint truck. What out your Lintile?
Did you go to my high school? I mean,
no, seriously. Like, what's with the handle Lintile? What does that mean?
Honestly, it is a 7-letter word and domain name that I've been collecting ever since I had it on IRC back in the day.
Shit, you were on IRC?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me you were a BBS dial-up guy. Did you?
I came in right at the end of that, yeah.
Oh, God. You're such a baby. How old are you?
How old do you think I am? Didn't we already do this?
You're a millennial.
Okay.
You're a millennial? Oh,
I hope you do get on this on tape. Go self. I'm not a millennial.
Oh, God. Are you a millennial?
I quit. This interview is over. Actually, hold on. I gotta answer this phone call really quick. I'm sorry. Just
Seriously?
1 second.
Is he going to take a call in the middle of our podcast?
Just don't ask me how old I am.
I guess they're right. Senior citizens, although slow and dangerous behind the wheel, can still serve a purpose.
I'll be right back. Don't you go dying on me.
Because I'm not going to answer that.
You're not supposed to ask a woman that. You look like you're in your 20s anyway, so get off this call.
Yeah.
He really took a call in the middle of our podcast.
He did. Look at that. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my God.
Yes, very funny, very funny. Can we please just focus on the text?
Hey.
Wait.
Priscilla.
Oh, no. Yes. Flash?
Okay. We're just rocking and I mean, we're just, with all these hacks going on, we're really busy over here. We're just taking calls left and right.
Okay. So I want to talk about this for a minute. Like, talk about marketing for a cybersecurity company. What is that like? I mean, okay, they say like working in cybersecurity is like dog years, right? So it's like for every year it's 7 years. What is it like in marketing? Is it worse than dog years? Is it?
I mean, I've been working in the cybersecurity industry for 10 years now, over 10 years. And, sometimes I do feel like it has been 70 years. I mean, I think in the last 2 weeks, it's been at least a year because there's been a lot going on. It's so interesting because stuff happens all the time. And, it's crazy keeping up with the headlines, keeping up with the latest breach. I remember when I started my marketing career, I was a marketing manager for Norton, Norton Antivirus.
Oh my God.
I was the product marketing manager for Norton Antivirus back in 2010.
You do go back.
Yeah.
Norton.
And
Jesus.
yeah, I mean, and that's like the days when, PC software was dying a slow, like starting its decline as a slow death. And, Macs were coming out, and then, mobile came out. And I mean, I actually launched the first mobile security product for Norton way back in the day. But, things are always changing. But at the same time, I mean, I think Aaron and I were having this conversation earlier. I mean, things are always changing, but things stay the same. Yeah. Even with this research, I mean, credit card skimming is not new, but, now they've just transformed it into a digital attack vector. It's like
taking on a new life.
Yeah. So things are always crazy. There's always another breach, another hack. And, it's just keeping on top of it.
I like the color of your wall behind you, by the way. I'm a big gray girl. Is that dark gray?
It's Arxan blue, which I believe is Hail Navy for any of you designers out there.
Hail Navy. Okay. Yeah. It looks dark gray. I like it. I dig the whole dark gray thing. Mr. Lintile.
Yes. How's it going?
Let's talk about in plain sight. Let's talk about Magecart. Let's talk about in-app security protection. Let's nerd. Are you ready to nerd?
I am always ready to nerd.
People judge you differently than they did in high school. Where are they? I think they're talking about us.
All of us are going to nerd out. All right, Lintile, give it to us. Talk about in plain sight 1.
Yeah. I mean,
part 1, and then let's talk about part 2. And oh my God, I feel like I'm part of the furniture now. You guys are like, I'm part of the Arxan furniture, and I've never had you on this podcast. It's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for the update and the invite. I really appreciate you finally having me on your illustrious podcast.
Only the best, baby. I needed to vet you guys first before I actually invited you on. This is like your careers will take a 180-degree turn after this show. Like it is. Like seriously, I make superstars, baby.
Let's do it.
Superstar. So
I think we actually might have helped make you with this first report.
That's true. You guys created me. You
created a monster.
I will hang my ego at the door. Did you see how she just did that, Aaron? You see how she just like, my head was like getting this big, and then she's just like.
That's called viral marketing right there.
You know what? She's so good. She has me actually believing it. Oh my God. It's like that Chris Rock stand-up act when he was like, I got pulled over by the cops, and the cop actually made me believe I stole my own car. I really he's like, you stole this car. Oh my God, maybe I did steal this car. It's like, she's got me now thinking you guys created me. So now that we know you've created a monster.
Yeah, no. So when we set out to try to start some movement and awareness of the threats that actually exist inside the applications that are running on the devices and in the browsers that we use, we talked about in the first report some of the things that are sort of inside the critical mobile apps that we are using every day. Financials, healthcare, all of those sorts of things carry the information, most of the time really in your pocket. And so in most of the ways that InfoSec has grown into new areas, we seem to tend to repeat the same problems, as we did back in the day in the data center, as we transferred from mainframe to the cloud.
Old vulnerabilities kind of resurface.
It's the same thing, just in another context. Exactly.
Yeah. And we saw that in part 1, obviously I'm the one who wrote that report. Really interesting findings on the mobile apps. I'm still presenting at conferences from the findings. I think they go all the way up through the end of October. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that definitely, much to your point, Deb, that really did, that created a lot, let's try that again. Cut.
Have you ever seen that? They're hideous. Lifeless beady eyes, clawed feet, huge grotesque wings, evil fangs.
Okay, so so that was a lot of fun. I'm speaking at conferences about the results. Actually, at the Global CIO Forum, by the way, remind me to tell you about this. I met this amazing new ninja, had dinner with her. She's the head of global security operations for Scotia Bank. Anyway, she's going now. Like,
oh, nice.
Telling her about the forum, like, she's like, oh my God, I have to be there. I was like, yes, you do. And so this is the first time I'm going to be doing it on stage, reverse engineering an app on stage and showing the findings, trying to figure out how to do that without showing the bank name. But we'll talk about that later. So Aaron, yes.
We can make sure that the bank is not in the room, by the way, and then you could just go ahead and reverse engineer.
There you go, because they won't care.
Yeah, because they won't be there
on YouTube or anything.
No, it won't be.
Like people.
I won't say that I've never attempted that at a prospective customer site. It's one of my favorite things to at least mentally explore doing, because sometimes you have people that don't necessarily believe right away. I think, and I think it's endemic of the fact that as security goes, a lot of the sort of traditional thinking is really centric around the network, right? Yeah. And so, if it doesn't cross the network, it doesn't matter, is a phrase that I've heard a number of times. And the bottom line is, this is a common theme that we've explored in both of these reports, that a lot of the behavior that actually exposes your infrastructure and your web apps, as well as your mobile apps, is actually sitting on the device, and you're able to, get information about what APIs are in use, how encryption is done, actually what happens when you click login or when you put your credit card information in. All of that business logic is sitting inside the application. Yeah. And that happens before anything ever hits the network. You have the ability to sort of plan your attack very succinctly as an attacker or a researcher.
No, I agree. And it's interesting to me because hindsight is always 20/20, right? Like, we walked into this and I was thinking, we're going to do this vulnerability analysis. We're going to find these vulnerabilities in these mobile apps. And we're going to look for these API URLs. And that's really cool. That's awesome. But it almost kind of took on a new life midstream after the research, where did you notice it kind of started moving towards, oh, wait a minute. This is now all about API security. And okay, the other vulnerabilities are scary. Don't get me wrong. The SQL injection, all that other stuff was, all that stuff was bad. But it almost kind of became this, and it's probably because of how prominent API breaches are right now, and everyone trying to understand how to secure them. It really became about the APIs, all of the API tokens, all of the hard-coded credentials. It's almost like the entire report itself, the findings were one thing, and then all of a sudden the narrative started to change and transform. And the narrative started to be about the API keys and the tokens and all of the things that we were finding as related to APIs to those mobile apps. It was really interesting. It's still very interesting. I mean,
I think the biggest thing for exposes for me is the fact that there are so many organizations out there that are taking security seriously, in good faith, I would say, which still have a white space in their threat model for what actually happens, where their code interacts with the client. Knowing what's going on in the browser, knowing what's going on with your mobile app is not something that has ever been sort of, what can an attacker do with that? Right. And that's one of the things that I'm excited about these reports, because they're concrete examples of what, a motivated attacker could pull off of a website without ever crossing the company's data center boundaries, and actually be able to monetize this in a major way.
In the comfort of their own home.
In the comfort of your own home. Yeah. You don't have to, commit wire fraud to do this, right? You're just putting code that renders in the browser, takes the information from the user directly, and siphons it off to a third-party server. It's an interesting thing that I think is the biggest change in terms of the culture, is that even though it's not the companies themselves who are, sort of, their machines are not the ones getting hit. Like their big things are not the target of the attack. It's actually still, companies are still paying the brand damage price. And they're also starting to pay the actual punitive price under the data privacy regulations, which was such a departure from the, wasn't my server, not my problem. Yeah. And the consumers are starting to vote with their dollars. Yeah. And, you go away, especially with financial institutions, that are these challenger banks that have, unique and immersive user experiences that all they really have is the reputation that they've built, and a black mark on security. It just kills you dead in the water, because customers will take their money to somebody that they feel safe.
You make a good point, because data is the new currency, right? I just wrote an article about how it's actually been quantified. Like, they are actually assigning value. There's quantification happening. And it's funny. I just saw this cartoon the other day on LinkedIn where it was, I don't know if you've seen it. It was this picture of the student at the chalkboard, and the teacher's like, write your name on the board. And the student's like, before I write my name, I would like to know what it is you're going to do with my data.
Exactly.
What are you going to use my name for? And it's true. Like, I think as the newer generations grow up, their view on data privacy, their views on the protection of their PII, it definitely, I think, is starting to change and differ from other generations. So interesting. So let's talk about part two. Part two just came out today. The embargo has been lifted on part two. Let's talk about part two. What is it? How is it different from the first report that I wrote on mobile apps? It's, to me, maybe I'm biased, but to me, it's just as sexy as the mobile app research. Let's talk about it. Let's break this apart. What is part two?
Well, I think the exciting part here, tragically exciting part here, is that knowing that attacks that had been out there for months and years in some case had occurred, you were able to find essentially 80 websites in like 2.5 minutes that had active attack packages embedded within the rendered website, right. Just through essentially a simple search. And what that tells you is that hackers don't have to be inventive for this. This is rinse and repeat, a standard attack package where they can maximize the impact by, exploiting known vulnerabilities of age, which sit unpatched for a very long time, and then put something into the supply chain that actually exfiltrates all of this data to their server so that they can go sell it on the dark web, in a credit card dump.
Yeah, the scary thing was, I think a lot of them, like I said, some of them were running Magento from several years ago, like really old versions of Magento. And like one of them was, what was it, a major fashion label's microsite. So it's interesting. It was fun research. So this is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is more focused on web. So the first one was mobile, and the world should know that this one is about websites, not mobile apps. And the injected JavaScript and that appearing in the DOM. You want to talk about that? You want to decode the whole?
Yeah, so what the modern web app is essentially a collection of these third-party packages, frameworks, additional packages that accomplish the individual pieces of functionality like marketing awareness, different reactive interfaces. But the bottom line is, in that sort of amalgamation of all of the different components, you end up with so many things that are not your code that you don't have direct control over as an organization, that keeping track of all of these things is a huge effort. B, sometimes you don't even know if there's an O-Day or something that, happens where one of these components gets popped and now is serving malware. There's been a couple of examples of that over the last couple of years, where the maintainer of one of these components hands over control of that component to a malicious party, and now, congratulations, the next time that gets updated or pulled or deployed, you now as an attacker have upwards of hundreds of thousands of websites that use this and now are deploying your code line by line. And frankly, unless you are, testing as a company at the end of the chain where you're actually pulling it as it would render in a browser, outside of your organization post deployment, it's hard to know that. It's hard to know that and see that unless you have the ability to sort of introspect the web app from within. And as these things are added to the DOM of the website that gets rendered and sort of assembled in the browser, there's a known good that should come out of this, right? This is what the DOM should look like. These are the components that it should be loading. These are the different sites that it should be hitting. And any anomaly there is usually a problem. At the very least, should be investigated and run to ground. You know, you can see change over time. You can see, you know, those sorts of things sort of materialize when they're happening. I mean, if there would be an in-app protection on that browser rendered website, a Magecart style attack where it, you know, pulls down an attack package and renders along with the site, lights up like a Christmas tree. And you can actually,
and that's what Arxan does, right? Like, so
yes, absolutely.
So the CISOs in our audience and who are trying to figure out how to protect against this, you know, that's what Arxan does. Is you guys have an in-app security solution that will obfuscate the code, use white box encryption, all that fun stuff. There's tamper detection. I believe you guys can even shut the browser down. And
yeah, we have a number of reaction techniques such that essentially, if you want to go back to the network world, like you have a NOC or a SOC playbook where if your analysts see this is what you do next. You turn the account off. You do anything like that. We have the ability to do that sort of behavioral response configurable inside the application itself. You know, disable functional components of the website, report back home the suspicion for a certain install or a certain user, and help those fraud calculations, especially at financial institutions, be aware of whether the behavior that a user is taking inside their browser has integrity or not.
And I think one of the interesting findings for me from this research was not just that this evil JavaScript was embedded in these sites that I found, but that the code, the way it's designed is when you go to a hijacked site that's been formjacked, the interesting thing for me was that not only is your credit card data sent to the Magecart group at the collection server, but your credit card is still processed by the site.
Sure.
So the victim is none the wiser. And who's going to inspect the DOM on a website? How's that? The average, I'll do that, you know, but the average Joe or Jane on Main Street is not going to right click on a website and say, inspect code, inspect source, and look at the DOM for it.
And that's actually one of the things, you know, so like I'm in marketing. I'm not.
That's okay. You're still the smartest marketing chick I know. So go ahead. Do your
but,
thing. Do you.
But I mean, I have no programming experience. Like I'm not a coder. I'm not a security expert. You know, from a technology perspective, I've worked in this space forever, so I know what to look for. But you know, from a consumer perspective, I went on, you know, because I mean, I obviously saw the list of compromised sites and, you know, obviously treading very carefully, knowing this, like I didn't conduct any business on it, but I actually went to the sites and I actually looked and saw, you know, what was going on. And, you know, just with the PC security that I, as a consumer, should have on my computer, there were probably 3 websites that actually blocked access to the website where my browser said, you know, this is a potentially compromised site. 3 of them out of 80.
Out of 80.
And then, you know, a couple of them, like I would get like a little, if it wasn't an HTTPS website, you know, I would actually get like a little red exclamation point, like in the URL up there saying like, hey, you know, you might want to proceed with caution. But I mean, that happened in a handful.
Yeah, out of 83 out of 80. Oh my God.
Yeah, and I mean, so as a consumer, you know, what am I supposed to do? I mean, my credit card goes through, I make a purchase, I get the transaction, and then 3 months later, you know, my identity gets compromised. Oops.
Yeah.
You know, how do I trace that back to, you know, whatever activity that I did?
Yeah, because these forms can tell you, they want your name, they want your billing address, not only just your credit card information, but your address, the address that's tied to that credit card. You know, I mean, and that's going to be a valid address, you know, or you change it. But it was really interesting research. And I should note in this one, so an update for all of you. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but we've actually adopted a policy at Aite Group as a result of the first report for notifications. So we're actually working with the banks now and letting them know about the vulnerabilities we found in their app.
Awesome.
And we're actually working on this responsible disclosure thing. I mean, you know, just to make a point, you know, we didn't out the bank names in the report. So, you know, it's not like we violated responsible disclosure. It's just we've decided that, you know, this is a good thing to not just make the entire industry aware of these problems, we do need to go to these banks and we need to let them know about their individual issues and work with them on addressing it.
Well, in fact, that's what Arxan did with this second report. We actually enlisted the help of the FBI because the FBI, to their credit, has a very set procedure for alerting, victim notification. And so while we will also in this report not disclose the individual websites affected, we have gone through the steps to notify them through the proper channels for responsible disclosure.
Well, I know we only have about 4 minutes left in this podcast. Lintile, you very rudely did not introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You know, Deborah took this time out to introduce you. Didn't. No one knows who the hell you are. Everybody knows.
Well, who you are. I'm Aaron Lint. I'm Arxan's chief scientist and VP of research.
That's a cool title.
Yeah, I mean, we do so I guess I'll say a little bit more. I run Arxan's threat team. Okay. It's what we consider one of our primary differentiators to a number of other security vendors in our space, where we actually take a look at the emerging threats that are being used to attack mobile apps, websites, cryptography, basically anything in computing that might either hurt the consumers that our customers are delivering apps to, or the customers themselves against data breaches and things like that, to keep our products up to date, to keep essentially moving forward the needle of security and making it more usable, accessible, and more straightforward. When we have these sort of, again, new user experiences that are going out into untrusted environments, to make sure that customers can stay safe when they're using them.
Awesome. That's an awesome mission statement. So is there anything that you or Deb would like to close out with? I mean, I definitely want you guys to let people know how they can find you on Twitter. How can they find Arxan? But anything you guys want to leave as last minute thoughts for everyone?
Go ahead, Deb. You can go first.
I was just going to say, you guys can find us on LinkedIn or Twitter, Arxan, Arxan, just so you know how to spell it correctly. And yeah,
I think I spelled it with a K when I first like, how do you spell that?
Hey, I had to ask in the interview process how to pronounce it correctly, but now I've got it.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but it's cool. Yeah. So, and I'm assuming it's at Arxan on Twitter.
Yes,
that's correct.
Awesome. And Mr. Lintile.
Yeah, I'm at Lintile, Lintile on Twitter. And I mean, the bottom line with this research, I think it goes to show you that organizations really need to consider sort of the white space of what happens in the browsers, what happens on the phones of their users, in terms of the security posture that it creates for the transactions that the users are doing. Because the bottom line is that the brand damage that comes along with not properly taking care of and ensuring the sanctity of their users' data can make a really big impact on the bottom and top lines of your institution over time.
Yeah, well, this is, and I'll add a final closing. This was a lot of fun doing this research. Definitely looking forward to doing more research with you guys. I personally learned a lot. Like I'm always telling people expect that pen testers or hackers walk into engagements knowing everything about it. I'm quite the opposite. I've learned everything I've learned as a result of pen tests and a result of hacking. And, we really go into projects like this, really not knowing much about it and learning, how to break it and how to do it in the middle of it. It's you learn so much by taking things apart. And so this was a lot of fun. I look forward to continuing to do new research with you guys. I think there's a huge attack surface out there that you guys solve for and secure. And I think there's a lot more research we can do together. So thanks for being on the show today. It's been fun having you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for working on us or working with us on these crazy projects.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.